And I want to give honors and thanks to our Reverend Amon, who did a wonderful word this morning to really open up and set our tone for our special sermon. Our theme for this month is the living Christ within. Our chapter to read this month is chapter 20 in our textbook, What the Mystics Taught. And I pray that we find that in this time, obeying the mandate, that we pull out old tapes during the week, that we pull out and dust off those books. I could say that Reverend Paul and I, we've been listening to Stratton Smith, the 4 T's. So for any of you that have the book or the tapes, I would say find them, dust them off, and start to read. Because what I would like to see when this mandate is listed, that when we come back together, there is something new, different, enlightened about each of us. Because when we come back, we need to come back together as if we did something during this mandate, during this time, as we deal with the crisis in the world. This is not the first crisis, and it won't be the last. But when we can actually train ourselves and learn what to do in the time of crisis, and that's really by doing something every single day that adds to our spiritual book of life, our spiritual book bank account, actually. So I want us to start doing something that we may have done casually, or when you're asked to, or when you need to, that we do this something while we're in every single day, if not repeating something every hour. In the 4 T's that was gifted to us by our Reverend Mary, thank you, it says to repeat that I am prosperous 100 times a day. And he says that it only takes 8 minutes if you say that I am prosperous. And if we go back to the first 90 days of the year, we dealt with prosperity spiritually, lovingly, and then materially. And so what that means is that those 90 days should have meant something. So we should say 100 times a day while we're cooking, while we're doing anything, that I am prosperous in every area of my life. That means in peace, calm, comfort, harmony, I am prospered. That means whatever my need is, I am prospered in it. I want or need for nothing, because the Spirit of the Lord is with me. So before the world became manifest, it was an idea in the mind of God, out of the void. God first created the heavens and the earth. Then God said, let there be light. And as a child of God, a co-creator, this great privilege has been given and bestowed upon each of us. Can you imagine if 100 of us, 200 of us, 300 of us, thousands of us said every day, let there be light? That energy, the power of our word, would eradicate what appears to be darkness. Let us remember to go first to the center of our own being, where the power of spirit abides in fullness. then we will be able to follow the divine example of speaking and believing, let there be light. Stratton Smith says, when we affirm that we are prosperous, we're not counting coins or things. We are actually allowing ourselves to feel it. And that's why we repeat it. We repeat it enough. We repeat, I am whole, perfect, and complete. We repeat, I have everything that I need. We repeat that I am sitting in my home being thankful, joyful, and happy. And we repeat it until we feel it. And when we can bring about the feeling, that brings upon a different energy and a different vibration. Reverend Gerald reminded us last week that we are responsible for everything that goes on, for we are one with all the power, all the good that there is. And so I give thanks to Reverend Gerald for assisting in us being able to not be limited to 100 people, but now we're open to 300. So I will ask that you tell people what we're doing, that you ask people, you give them the information, you pass it on, because this is a powerful opportunity for us to turn our thinking around, turn our lives around, come back to family, and then lift up our church and lift up this teaching to once and where started, that it will be even more power-filled, and that we could talk to more people, we could be an example for more people. So I will affirm, and I pray that in the silence you affirm with me. And if you're muted, and I hope you are, until the end of our service, that we affirm today that I will take time to think before I speak or act, to take control. I will watch at the door of my mind and let no thought enter that is not true, that is not loving. I will affirm and say, Father, thank you for the wisdom that is flowing through me now. Thank you for healing that is flowing through me now. Thank you for the light and the love that is present with each of us now. Let us turn our consciousness and know that what wonders will come to mind, what infinite possibilities await our recognition. I will say that with any change, with contemplation, cooperation, realization, and unification, we can do anything and all things. We've seen it done through Scripture. We've seen it broken down through our texts. We've heard it through testaments from people. And this comes to us for a change. Let that change be in you. The living Christ within is speaking, it's healing, it's beckoning for each of us to step up and step out what has been poured within us. And I will say that we are still in this Lenten season. Tomorrow will beckon our Holy Week. This is a season of preparation for receiving definite results. This is springtime, a season of renewal. When we look at the Lenten season, when days appear to be longer. And I would say that this is a season that because we have a mandate, days probably appear to be longer because we are required to stay in. And I know that some people are not taking it as serious because we get a little bit anxious, we get a little bit restless. But if we can utilize this time to renew our thinking, to renew how we feel, to make amends of all the things that's been floating in the air, in our lives, in our consciousness, then we will be fasting and praying for this is the season. 40 days, symbolizing the idea of a foundation for something to follow, to be intentional about a thing, to be intentional about our thoughts, to set a pattern, developing a habit, a completed preparation for the spiritual work. Moses got the 10 commandments, 40 days and 40 nights of fasting and praying. Elijah, which talks about going after God, wanting to know and feel the presence and power of God. Jesus, to get that new understanding, that New Testament. And then I could say for myself, I got my healing, my understanding, my awakening, my purpose, and my assignment during the Crohn's experience. So when we experience something and it appears to bring us down, that is the time, the perfect time, to put our ear to the lips of God, that we can hear what it is we are supposed to do in this time. Lenten season is asking us to renew, to refresh, to change. We do it on our computers. We do it on our phones. We refresh them. We get new apps. So this is the time that we are to refresh our minds and our thinking. So when we're observing this 40 days of fasting and praying, we are awakening to a change. We are uncovering. We are discovering in this thing that we call life. This is the season to retreat from the things of the world, a cleansing of the mind, and to recall the things of the spirit. And as Fillmore says, preparation for the glorious Eastertide, a preparation for the resurrection of the mind from our doubts, our fears, our worries, false beliefs, into the light of understanding. Because if we're not willing to spend this time with ourselves, our loved ones, our family, the people that live with us, if we're not willing to spend this time, how can we be prepared to come back out into the world and be that healing and be that example? Lent is embodying an exalted divine idea to cleanse and discipline the mind, the body, and the body of our affairs, allowing them to be more receptive to the Christ ideas. Praying is communing with the truth, and fasting is refraining from criticism, condemnation, and then to feast on love and unity, to rid ourselves of false belief in lack, sickness, and weakness. And it's not to dismiss the experiences, but it is to empower the Christ, the living Christ that's within each of us. We're speaking about an intentional connection with God and letting all else take a back seat. We are then, once we do that, we are climbing the ladder of spiritual truth to our purpose, God's fulfillment through us. God created the earth and everything in it, and then created man and woman, that God can express itself through us. And so now is the time that we should let go of the nothingness and bring forth the truth of our being. That something that is more powerful than anything we can see or experience is living in us and through each of us. No matter what our upbringing was, no matter how we're living, no matter the mistakes that we've made, no matter the things that we said prior to this moment, the moment that we can sweep mop, or cleanse the consciousness and surrender and say, Lord, have your way with me. Let me feel, sense your presence. Let me receive thoughts from on high. Let me get rid of all of the chatter about true experiences, not to deny them. But everybody can't hold the same thing. Somebody has to think a different thought. In this time, it made me think about the story of David and Goliath, which is in 1 Samuel chapter 17. David, which represents love. Goliath, which represents revealing and conspicuous. The appearance of a small shepherd boy. And then a giant. And what is it but us not realizing how much power we have? We are not a small shepherd anything. We are great because God is great within us. And what is the giant but the COVID-19? We deem things, people, circumstance, situations as small, large, insignificant, strong, weak, and we have different names that we put to people and things, whatever comes. But just because a Goliath is aggressive, domineering, something that parades or brag of its power, which is what COVID-19 is doing right now, it does not mean that it's all power. Like David, love in us as an offspring of a great God should realize we are fully armed, because we talked about it. The armor, the whole armor of God. We are fully armed with the wisdom for the answer, the solution to the appeared problem, the comfort of our Father, for we are in its presence. We are in God's presence right now. So there should not be no thing that will conquer us when we actually realize that we and the Father are one. It is only when we feel a separation that we feel that something outside of ourselves can come and conquer us. And the appearance of it is because we keep talking about it, we keep fearing about it, we are worried about it, we hear numbers about it, we hear panic about it. But who? And I pray that it is our listeners from LA 3rd that will turn this thing around, that will affirm from this day moving forward that the Spirit of the Lord is covering us with a cloud of healing. David sent a stone, because it said he had a stone that he put in a slingshot. He sent a stone that shattered the forehead of the giant. But that is our ability to overcome anything that thinks that it's greater than the presence, the living Christ that's within us. And the forehead represents any thought that appears. And we have to shoot it down with a greater thought, with a positive thought, with a constructive thought, with a loving thought. And that's when you really know that you truly believe in love and you truly trust the power of God that's within you, is when we can speak in the face of adversity, of darkness, of hurt, of a challenge, of a situation, that it appears that nobody knows what to do. But the presence and Spirit of God knows what to do. So let us lay our anxiety, restlessness, worry, fear on the altar and allow God to alter it. David, love is assured of itself. When we think in love, when we speak in love, when we walk in it, when we eat with it, when we awake as it, when we can sleep on it, when we can just be love. Whatever the question, whatever the circumstance, love is the answer. Because when we're speaking, sleeping, eating, walking, being love, that means we are so connected with the Father, with the Creator, with God, with Spirit, then nothing can come against us. We must look beyond appearances to speak to what the change needs to be. Ideas, thoughts, experiences, they only come to find where we are willing to land. LA Third family, where are we going to land? This will not last forever. It is only a season and a time in which we are being asked to think higher. Thoughts are our basis for all that is and forever will be. Our experiences and our expressions is our thoughts, our thinking, our words, our actions. In chapter 20, Ernest Holmes talks about a mystic. He says that a mystic is a man or woman who has a deeper inner sense of the unity of life, sensing the divine presence. That means that we are having nothing against anything, having nothing against this COVID-19. It came to wake us and shake us. And what are we going to do about any and everything that comes to shake us and awake us, so that we can understand what the power truly is? The power on the outside is no match for the living Christ on the inside. Thoughts and words are the most powerful force availed to humanity. We can choose to use the power, our thoughts and our words constructively, or we can choose to use them destructively. Words have the energy, the ability to help, to heal, to assist, or to hinder, hurt, or harm, or keep the darkness continuous. So we have to speak light in darkness. We have to choose to pray, affirm, meditate, declare a different experience. Or we can feed, empower what already is. A different thought will bring a different outcome. I'm not just blowing smoke up your pants leg or your skirt. I am reminding us of how this thing called life really works. God did not leave us without that which we need. David said in Psalms 139:7, "Where could I go from your presence, your spirit? Where could I flee? There is no place that we can go that our ever-present help is not there." God is everywhere and knows everything. God only needs a word from you and from me in order to act. For God will never leave nor forsake us. That's why we are all created individualized beings with dominion and choice to speak a word. So whether we have a great deal of faith or we may think we have little faith, we can all grasp and affirm right now in this moment that God is healing me now. My God is awakening me now. Let us plant a seed in the now for a maybe not yet miracle. If we plant a seed now and we affirm our truth, that which we're seeking, that which we need, that which we want will come forth. Just as planting a seed in the ground, just as planting a seed for a flower. If we plant it now, speak our word now, and be patient in the process. The seed doesn't jump out of the soil wondering what's happening. The seed sits until something happens. A living Christ is within each of us right now. Fertile soil. Plant your seed, for this too shall pass. And depending on how much we keep talking about it and giving it our fears and worries will determine how long it stays with us. Ernest Holmes says the teaching of the mystic has been that there should be conscious courting of the divine presence. There should be a conscious receptivity to it. Our giver is God. There must be a receiver to get the goods. So we must be seekers, askers, and knockers on the door of our own consciousness to receive the blessings of the giver. God is always giving. God is always creating based on the consciousness of the world, the consciousness of its offsprings. The law will obey whatever we plant. God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. Not the author of lack, but of abundance. Not chaos, but order. No one can make us do anything. We decide. God does not force, suggest, or persuade. God only infuses. And we get to use the power how we choose. God gave us a clean heart and a right mind. We've allowed the world to somehow persuade us. So now it's time to allow that clean heart to prevail. Now it's time to take our mind back. We're choosing to think today, to affirm today. Remember, this is a new day, a new opportunity, one that's never presented itself before. This is an opportunity to change the way we have been doing things, for that old way brought us to this point. The universe says, new thoughts, please. Higher, loving thoughts, please. Constructive, creative thoughts, please. If and when we become discouraged, wanting to speak kindness and loving words and greater thoughts and to turn this thing around, if and when we become discouraged, thinking that healing, resources, anxiousness, whatever it may be, won't come. If we see little signs of progress, allow yourself to realize God's continuous power, where or what's needed, is always at work. God never sleeps or slumbers. And this work that God is doing is way beyond our ability to judge it. Just have trust in it, believe in it, and most of all, have faith in it. Let us affirm that I am prosperous in every way, every day, 100 times. It will take less than 10 minutes. And keep saying it until you actually fill yourself up with it. Let us tap into our David consciousness. For David represents the power of love in the face of error, which is the Philistine Goliath. Love goes out because it is fearless. Love thinks no evil. David has faith in the one presence, the one power, the good. And just like David, our assurance of victory is our courage and boldness of divine faith and love. Our defense is our ability to speak and abide in the word of truth, the word of authority. For it strengthens the whole of us. When we surrender our whole self to the Creator, God can do His perfect work. Remember when we were children, it says you put your left foot in, you put your left foot out, and then it speaks through the whole body. You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around, and at the very end it says you put your whole self in. Surrender your whole self, because that's what this is all about right now, is turning around. Turning around and facing the Spirit of God. Allow yourself to be cleansed from the inside out. Our spiritual nature transcends all physical and the material plane. This is the time to empty, cleanse, refresh, reaffirm. Get acquainted with yourself. Let's not limit what we think we know, and what we actually do. Let us release the lesser and grab hold of the greater. I want to give thanks for the people that are still serving us, for the people that are giving even though, and for the people that are staying connected to assist us in keeping our doors open, assisting us in paying our continuous bills. I want to thank you for your words of encouragement, your support, your love, for it does the body of the church good. A change in consciousness will give birth to a change in circumstance, experience, and life. What are we willing to affirm? What are we willing to do? Peace and abundant blessings to all of you. And thank you once again